Alright everybody, welcome to this week's lesson. This week we're going to be covering CSS layouts and kind of some more advanced HTML and CSS. So this is officially the HTML and CSS Part 2 lesson. So when we talk about layouts, what I'm talking about is the general order of things on the page. So a typical layout that we might see usually consists of a header, some content, and a footer. So I am by no means saying that every website needs to conform to this basic structure, but for the most part and for simplicity's sake, we can assume that this is a known layout, a known looking layout. So this is a main header, a content area, and a footer. And the way we used to have to do this is with tables. And unfortunately, a lot of websites did this for a really long time. And essentially, they would accomplish this layout on the page by using tables. So these would be different table rows. They would divide up different columns by using table columns, essentially, and they would even nest tables. So you might have like a content area down here that would actually be a nested table inside of another table. So the markup got really bad. We like to refer to this as markup soup, because there's just a lot of tags get created when you use tables for layout. So no tables. And I will probably repeat this mantra quite a bit this semester. I don't want to see tables for layout. There are always going to be HTML and CSS solutions for creating nice looking layouts for your web pages. So even on things like navigation, like if you have a horizontal navigation here, it's really tempting to want to lay that out using a table, but you shouldn't. You should lay this out using a list of some sort and style it accordingly. But it's easy to fall into the trap of wanting to use tables, but it's much easier to write better HTML and then use CSS later on to make the style you want. And that way you can always go back and change it later and you're not stuck with the table-based markup. So this week, the three layouts we're going to take a look at are essentially this layout here. So this is going to be our single column website, and that's going to have a header, a main content area, and footer. And this could either be a fluid layout, meaning that the website width is the same width as the browser and it expands and contracts to that size, or it could be fixed, which means we actually set a width on this area, and then, so say this is 800 pixels, and then the content area will always stay that size no matter how large the browser is, how wide the browser is. So the second type of website layout we're going to look at today, or this week, is the standard 2-column. And this is, or has been, made famous by blogs everywhere, including WordPress and Blogger, and just about every service you can think of has used this website. And for good reason. It's a good layout. It fits really nicely with a lot of different types of content that you often find on the web. So it's very universal and it works well in a lot of situations. So again, up here we have our header, and this could be a navigation or actual header items like you see over here. And then now we have a sidebar here, and typically this might be additional navigation on a blog. This could be a Twitter feed or an archive links or a blog roll of some sort. And then of course in the main area you're going to have your main content. So this is accomplished by using floats. What we actually do is float these different content sections left and right, or both left or both right, depending on what we're trying to accomplish, to get this type of layout. And then we also introduce what's called a clear down here to the footer to make sure it sits below both of these elements. So this is our 2-column design, and we're going to look at this layout today as well. And this too can be fixed or fluid width, just like we talked about over here with the single column. So the last type of layout I want to show you guys today, or this week, is a fluid and responsive gallery style layout. And what I mean by that gallery style layout is that you have a series of content chunks that sit one on top of each other in kind of a grid pattern, very similar to the Pinterest design. If you're not familiar with Pinterest, you can check that out to see what I mean. It's not exactly the same. Pinterest does a little different. They do some extra eye candy with their grids. So anyway, that's not the best grid out there, but you get what I'm going for here. So these could be images, or they could be little blocks of content, or they could even be little tweets. They could be anything you want here, or any type of content. It really depends. This type of layout is very specific to certain types of content that fit into a gallery format. Particularly images, videos, things like that. And again, Pinterest. Check out Pinterest and you'll see exactly what I mean by the gallery format. So this could be a multi-column. This could be 2, 3, 4 columns. It could be as many as, it could accommodate as many columns as the screen is wide. And we're going to look at 2 variations on this. One that expands and contracts the individual cells, and one that wraps the cells as the website gets smaller. So, if you were looking at a mobile device, for instance, so say you're on an iPad, you might see only 2. So you might have your header up here, and then you might only see 2 content sections on the iPad. So you see here it goes from 3 to 2 because it's a smaller size, as opposed to keeping 3 sections up here but making them all smaller. It keeps them the same size and wraps them, so you don't lose any content fidelity. So this is a nice, interesting solution, and this is actually called responsive design. And this is a way of designing websites that allows them to function and look properly on large and small screens. And we'll get into that a little bit as the semester goes on, and you'll get a little taste of that later on. So check down below for the remainder of the videos, and I hope you guys learn a lot about CSS layouts this week.